Bible prophecy is active and unfolding daily. Zechariah 12, Isaiah 17, Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38. Here is what the LameStream Media is not telling you. Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's newscast. From the U.S. Institute of Peace, according to the annual worldwide threat assessment of the United States intelligence community, Iran already has the largest inventory of ballistic missiles in the Middle East. From the New York Times, for months, the United States has insisted there can be no military solution to the Syrian civil war, only a political accord. But after days of intense bombing that could soon put the city of Aleppo back into the hands of Assad's forces, the Russians may be proving the U.S. wrong. The Russian military action has changed the shape of a conflict that had effectively been stalemated for years. Suddenly, Assad and his allies have momentum, and the rebels, backed by the United States, are on the run. Note, Russia's victory in Aleppo is not the end of a war. It's the beginning of a new war. Neither Turkey nor Saudi Arabia can afford to have the rebel cause wiped out by Moscow and its Iranian allies. President Obama once again reveals his hatred of Israel. From the Times of Israel, the White House announced on Thursday that President Barack Obama will sign a trade bill despite it containing a provision that lumps together Israel and Israeli-controlled territories, which includes a clause that addresses politically motivated acts to limit or prohibit economic relations with Israel. From the Business Insider, in August of 2014, the Obama administration declared that Syria's chemical stockpile had been destroyed. However, just last Tuesday, U.S. Director of National Intelligence James Clapper told a Senate committee, quote, "We assess that Syria has not declared all the elements of its chemical weapons program to the Chemical Weapons Convention. Moreover, we continue to judge that the Syrian regime has used chemicals as a means of warfare." Close quote. From the Washington Post, in the northern Syrian province of Aleppo, a battle with global dimensions risks erupting into a wider war. Russian warplanes are bombing. Iraqi and Lebanese militias, aided by Iranian advisors, are advancing on the ground. An assortment of Syrian rebels backed by the United States, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar are fighting back. Kurdish forces, allied both to Washington and Moscow, are extending Kurdish territories. And ISIS has snatched a couple of small villages while all the focus was being placed on the other groups. The Aleppo offensive is affirming Moscow's stature as a dominant regional power, and the advances by Shiite Iraqi and Lebanese militias are extending the sway of Iran far beyond the traditional Shiite axis of influence into Sunni areas of northern Syria. Almost all of the advances are being made by Lebanese Hezbollah, the Iraqi Badr Brigade, Harakat al-Nujaba, and other Iraqi Shiite militias, sponsored by Iran. Things are certainly escalating in Syria, my friends, and we are seeing very clear signs that states in the Arab world are all preparing to get nuclear weapons because they are not going to sit quietly with Iran going nuclear. Now, in last Thursday's word study, I talked about self-defense. Some people actually got angry with me, as if I was stating my own personal views, and, they were saying that Yeshua would never act violently. They believe. A lot of people like to say, oh, the Bible says this, I believe that. Well, I don't care what you believe. It doesn't matter what you believe. It only matters what Yahweh's word says. Now, first, I did not state my own personal views on this subject. I presented the word of Yahweh. And second, if anyone thinks that Yeshua would never act violently against another person, they need to take a look at the book of Revelation. Now, I have a complete study on that book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. I'll put a link to that in the more info section beneath this video. But the short of it is this: beware the wrath of the Lamb. In Revelation 19, verses 11 through 13, we see that Yeshua judges and makes war, and that his robe is covered in blood. You don't think Yeshua would act violently against another person? Some people make rash comments under my videos without watching the entire video. In fact, they probably watch a couple of minutes and then they have all kinds of things to say about what my video is saying when they don't even have a clue. And many people want the word to say what they want it to say. They want it to tickle their ears and satisfy their own beliefs. I believe it means this. I don't care what you believe. If it's not in line with the word, you're believing a lie. Such attitudes are nothing short of pure foolishness. Yeah, we're told to turn the other cheek. When someone insults us with something that's really of no consequence, and we're also told to rush to the aid of someone who is weak and being abused by a wicked attacker. And we are further told that killing someone who has broken into our house and threatening our loved ones is an absolutely necessary and acceptable action on our parts, according to Elohim. If you want to disagree with the word of Yahweh, stay away from my channel on YouTube. Do us both a big favor. We'll both be a lot happier. Now, if you missed last Thursday's word study, you'll see this graphic at the end of today's video, as well as a text link to it in the more info section beneath this video. Turning to wars and rumors of wars, on Tuesday, February 9th, from the Times of Israel, a Hamas member was killed in a tunnel under the Egypt-Gaza border near Khan Yunis. The collapse came a day after another Palestinian was killed when a smuggling tunnel caved in North Rafah. Tuesday's incident marks the 11th death in recent weeks due to Gaza tunnel collapses. From the Chicago Tribune, the Iraqi government has regained full control of Ramadi after pushing ISIS out of the city's outskirts. A road linking Ramadi to the capital, Baghdad, is also back under government control. However, untold thousands of improvised explosive devices were left behind, and the threat of ISIS attacks remains high. From UPI, ISIS claimed responsibility for a suicide bombing that killed at least 9 people at a police club in the Syrian capital of Damascus. The dead were police officers, and at least 20 other people were injured in the blast, which also damaged a nearby vegetable market. On Thursday, February 11th, from NBC News, tens of thousands of Iranians marched in Tehran's Azadi Square, chanting, "Death to America and Israel," and waving anti-Western placards on the 37th anniversary of the country's 1979 Islamic Revolution. President Hassan Rouhani gave an address saying, quote, "Our nuclear victory showed to the world that Iranians are capable of winning any battle, including diplomatic battles," close quote. And on Friday, February 12th, from the Wall Street Journal, world powers agreed to reach a ceasefire in Syria in 1 week, allowing aid and giving Russia and the Assad regime time to press an offensive. Note, the Syrian Center for Policy Research said that nearly 500,000 Syrians have died as a result of this 5 years of war. Now, my personal point of view, there will be no ceasefire. On Saturday, February 13th, from RT News, the Syrian government has confirmed that its army positions were targeted by Turkish shelling on Saturday, which also hit the positions of the Syrian Kurdish militias in the northern Aleppo province. On Sunday, February 14th, from RT News, Turkish shelling in Syria continued in direct support for terrorist groups. Turning to our Intifada update. From Israel Hayom, female fighters have become an inextricable part of Israel's border police. They serve in the most sensitive areas, checkpoints, patrols, ambushes, and arrests of terrorists. Currently, some 700 women serve with the border police. The professionalism and heroism of the border police women has been seen during terrorist attacks. For example, when 19-year-old Corporal Hadar Cohen managed to shoot the terrorist who stabbed one of her fellow police women before she was shot to death by another terrorist. On Tuesday, February 9th, from the Jerusalem Post, a Palestinian woman attempted to stab border police officers near the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem's Old City. And, in a separate incident, a young Palestinian girl with a knife was apprehended by a security guard as she approached the West Bank settlement of Karmei Tzur in Gush Etzion. From Ynet News and the Jerusalem Post, a 28-year-old Israeli, Tomer Ditur, was stabbed in the head and shoulder as he was jogging on the Derech Ha'avot path near Neve Daniel in Gush Etzion. The arrival of a second jogger on the path scared away the assailant, who fled in the direction of the Palestinian village of Nachlin. And on Saturday, February 13th, from the Jerusalem Post, 3 Israeli border policemen were injured when Palestinians rammed their jeep near Ma'ali Adumim. The 2 Palestinian attackers were injured. Then, a female Palestinian attempted to stab a soldier in Hebron before being shot dead by security forces. During the attack near the Cave of the Patriarchs, the woman stabbed and wounded a Palestinian bystander. On Sunday, February 14th, from Haaretz, a 14-year-old girl, a resident of Hebron, arrived at the border police post near the Cave of the Patriarchs and drew a knife. She tried to stab one of the officers at the roadblock, and he fired at her. Then, a Palestinian man who attempted to stab Israeli soldiers at a checkpoint near Har Homa in Jerusalem was shot and killed. From the Jerusalem Post, an IDF unit shot dead 2 Palestinians after coming under automatic weapons fire north of Jenin in the West Bank. And on Monday, February 15th, from Haaretz and the Times of Israel, 2 Palestinian men in their 20s armed with rifles, one a Palestinian police officer, approached police officers and soldiers at the Damascus gate and began to shoot, but Israeli forces killed the gunman. Now turning to our review of last week's news. Iran already has the largest inventory of ballistic missiles in the Middle East and is rushing towards becoming a nuclear threat to the world. The war in Syria is escalating. Obama has reaffirmed his hatred for Israel. We saw another death and another tunnel collapse under the Egypt-Gaza border. The Iraqi government has regained full control of Ramadi. ISIS conducted another suicide bombing in the Syrian capital of Damascus. Tens of thousands of Iranians marched in Tehran's Azadi Square chanting "Death to America and Israel." Turkish bombs fell in Syria. There were 8 Palestinian knife attacks, one by a 14-year-old girl, 1 car ramming attack, 2 Palestinian automatic weapons attacks, and 2 Palestinian rifle attacks. And that, my friends, is what the LameStream Media is not telling you. Abba willing, I'll see you here once again next week. Until then, stay safe. Shalom.
Crowded rooms, I need more space than I consume. Enough is time alone with you, underneath the naked moon, sharing confidential moods and making chatter. Mockingbird nocturnal sings notations of eternal things, entering the quantum breeze, flying not for want of wings. He lights his gaze on you and me, simply because we matter.